What is up, YouTube people? It's your boy Patty McNinja, and I finally pulled the trigger on a Steam Deck, and I've been playing it non-stop for a couple of weeks now, and I want to talk about it. So without further ado, let's rock. Like I just said, I've had my Steam Deck for a couple of weeks now. Coincidentally, it just celebrated its 1-year anniversary. And to celebrate that, Steam is now offering the Steam Deck for 10% off, which I just bought mine. So it was kind of the worst time to buy a Steam Deck right before it was about to have its first real discount. And I'm not bitter about it at all. And at first, it was really tough to get your hands on a Steam Deck. It wasn't quite PS5 difficult, but they had this weird pre-order system where they would kind of stagger how they were going to release their new inventory. But nowadays, you can just order it from their website. They have an estimated delivery date of 1 to 2 weeks. I ordered mine and got mine in about 6 days, so it was even quicker than they estimated. But before I give my thoughts on the actual Steam Deck itself, we do have to jump into which one did I order, because there's 3 different models. So the internal hardware on all 3 models are exactly the same. You also get a carrying case with your purchase on all 3 models, so that stays the same. However, with the more expensive tiers, you get faster storage and you also get more memory. And with the most expensive tier, you also get the premium anti-glare screen. And that's the one that I went with. I went with the big boy, which after taxes and everything, it cost me a little less than $700. But as you can see on the screen, if you order right now, you get a 10% discount, and I would have saved almost $100. And again, I'm not bitter about it at all. All jokes aside, I don't regret getting the big boy. I travel a decent amount and I've been playing this a lot, so I'm glad that I have the extra storage. But I do think that you could get away with getting the cheapest option because SD cards aren't very expensive, so you could always go that route. Also, if you're a little bit more DIY than me, I've heard that it's pretty easy to upgrade the internal storage as well, but that would involve taking apart the Steam Deck. That makes me very nervous. I'm not very good at that kind of stuff. I tried to replace an iPhone screen a couple of years ago and it did not go well. So if you want to go that route, that's cool. That's not really where I'm at right now. But that being said, you would almost have to upgrade the storage somehow, whether it's SD card or if it's you taking apart the Steam Deck, because 64 gigs is nothing. I'm going to bring this game up a couple of times, but the game that I've been playing a lot on the Steam Deck is Cyberpunk, and that already is too big for 64 gigs. All right, so let's get into it. I was first off the bat really impressed with how well the Steam Deck works pretty much right out of the box. It's super easy to use and navigate, especially if you're like me and you're already used to using Steam. I haven't really messed with desktop mode that much, but basically the Steam Deck is just a Linux desktop. I've seen videos of people using it as their gaming PCs. Me, I have a gaming PC, so I don't see myself using it like that much. However, Steam does sell a dock dedicated for that purpose. I believe it's about $89.99, so it's a little expensive. I would suggest, whether it's the Steam one or not, getting a dock if you plan on using the Steam Deck in desktop mode a lot, because it is pretty much a nightmare to navigate without at least a mouse. I had to download Xbox Cloud Gaming and it was a huge headache without a mouse. The screen resolution on the Steam Deck is only 1280 by 800. However, it's only a 7-inch screen, so even if they did manage full HD, you probably wouldn't be able to tell the difference anyways. And to be honest with you, I would much rather sacrifice a little screen resolution to make sure that the games run better, and that seems to be the choice that they made. That being said, I would have preferred an OLED screen. The screen on the Steam Deck doesn't look bad by any stretch, but the colors are a bit muted and unsaturated. However, there are plugins you can download to make it look better. So as far as the weight and size of the Steam Deck is concerned, you can definitely tell this was Valve's first crack at mobile gaming, because the Steam Deck is a big boy. It is big and clunky. The weight on it honestly hasn't been a huge issue for me personally, but that's mostly because I'm jacked. So stupid. Of course, I'm just a big dumb idiot and I'm kidding around. The real reason why the weight hasn't been an issue for me is because I've been mostly playing my Steam Deck on my living room couch, and when there's these long cutscenes in Cyberpunk, I've just kind of been laying it on my lap and watching them from there. So the weight hasn't really been an issue so far. That being said, I will be traveling on an airplane in a couple of weeks, so I'm curious to see how I deal with the weight at that point. But to be fair, the Steam Deck has been a drastic change, mostly because I'm used to playing on my Switch Lite, and I'm gonna hold them up so you can see them in comparison. It's actually kind of hard to even hold the Steam Deck with one hand. It's so much bigger. That being said, once you start playing a game, you kind of lose yourself in the game. So I don't think the weight and the clunkiness will really throw you off for too long. Once you get into a game, you kind of forget about it. Speaking of my Switch Lite, I'm not wearing my Sling Bag as a fashion statement for this video. It's actually my everyday carry, and I'm gonna let you in on a little secret. Come close. I bring my Switch with me to work. Don't tell my boss. And as you've probably already guessed it, the Steam Deck comes nowhere close to fitting in my Sling Bag, which is kind of a bummer, and I'm sure this is gonna sound like a first world problem. It probably is, but I do travel a decent amount, and I like having my Sling Bag as my only carry-on. It's real nice to not have any carry-on baggage underneath your feet. That being said, it's not a deal breaker for me. I will just have to pack a separate backpack with my Steam Deck and just put it in the overhead, and then just grab my Steam Deck before I sit down. So again, not a deal breaker, and it is definitely a first world problem now that I've said it out loud, but it is kind of an inconvenience for sure. Speaking of the carrying case, I like it a lot. It's a nice hard shell, so you know your Steam Deck will be protected. There's little indentions for the joysticks on the inside, so you know it won't move around a lot. My only nitpick is, since the charging port is on the top of the Steam Deck, charging it while it's in the case isn't super optimized. They could have easily done one of two things. They could have put a slit at the top so you could slide in a cord while it's zipped up, or they could have put the zippers at the bottom so you could zip it up pretty much all the way except for right where the cord is. They did neither of those things, so it's kind of hard to charge it while it's in the case. I would suggest wearing headphones if you can while playing the Steam Deck, because depending on what game you're playing, and as I've mentioned a couple of times, I've been playing a lot of Cyberpunk, which those types of games are going to push the Steam Deck to its limits. The fan does get very loud, and it is hard to hear what's going on, especially in these longer cutscenes where characters are talking at you. It's very hard to understand what they're saying without headphones. That being said, I would much rather have a loud fan than the alternative, which is my hands are burning because the Steam Deck is so hot. And luckily I haven't noticed the Steam Deck getting too hot. However, the biggest issue with me with the Steam Deck, and again, it's gonna depend on what type of games you play, is the battery life. So like I've already mentioned a few times, and I just mentioned it, I've been playing a lot of Cyberpunk, and I did a little test. From the moment that I turned the Steam Deck on a completely full charge, and then I played Cyberpunk until it died on me. Not the 10% battery warning, not the 5%, the 3%. I let it die on me. I got less than 3 hours with Cyberpunk, which is not a lot. I travel a lot of times to Vegas. I have a lot of family that lives in Vegas. That's a 5-hour flight. If I played Cyberpunk, I would still have 2 more hours on that plane with a dead Steam Deck. To be fair, I did do a similar test playing Donut County, which is a fantastic indie game if you've never played it before. I played that game for an hour straight, and I still had 84% battery life. So obviously, if you play more labor-intensive games, you're not going to get as good of battery life. So it really just depends on what types of games you play. Also, there is an option where if you have a gaming PC and a decent internet connection, you can actually stream games from your PC to your Steam Deck, which it kind of offloads the actual labor intensity of the game to your gaming PC, and it allows you to play much more easily on the Steam Deck. So that is a possibility. Of course, you can also mess around with the settings. So there are ways around the bad battery life, but there is no way around around it. It is the elephant in the room with the Steam Deck. The battery sucks. For the most part, I've been pretty impressed with how many games are Steam Deck compatible. It seems like they're adding more and more games every day. It does seem like most of the big PC ports are being verified as Steam Deck compatible, so it's obviously something that they're emphasizing. That being said, there have been a few surprises. Games like Inscription that I just kind of assumed would be Steam Deck compatible that just don't really work all that well. There are some funky workarounds to get them working, but for the most part, there are games that are just not going to work very well on the Steam Deck. That being said, as an iPhone user, it is a nice change of pace to have a device that gives me the freedom to do whatever I want. Valve has already come out and said that the Steam Deck is your device. You can do whatever you want with it. So it's really nice to hear. I've only had it for a couple of weeks, so I haven't really messed around with it as much, but it's cool that the developers gave us that option to do whatever we want with it. It's not like the Nintendo Switch where they're gonna try to brick it if you do anything funky with it. After all of that, would I suggest people out there to buy a Steam Deck? And 100% yes. I've been having a blast. Sure, I've been having some minor issues, the biggest one being the battery life, but none of them have been deal breakers for me. And honestly, I was a bit worried because I have a history of kind of hyper focusing on new tech, and I get it in my head that it's just going to absolutely change the way that I play video games. And then I buy it, I play it for a couple of days, and then I set it on a shelf to collect dust. I'm looking at you, Backbone. But I highly doubt that I'm going to set the Steam Deck down outside of charging it every few hours while I'm playing Cyberpunk. But I've been having a blast and I don't see myself stopping anytime soon. My only suggestion would be if you're like me and you have a gaming PC already, even though mine's a bit outdated, or you have a Switch or a PlayStation 5, whatever, you play games on other consoles, you could probably get away without getting the big boy like I did. Now, I don't necessarily regret it because, like I've said a couple of times, I do travel a lot. I do like having the bigger storage, so I don't necessarily regret it because I do see myself playing the Steam Deck a lot. But if you have other ways to play video games and you don't know if you're going to use the Steam Deck as much as I have, I definitely would suggest getting the cheaper option and then just upgrading with an SD card, because the SD card is always going to be cheaper than the next tier up. But of course, those are just my thoughts. I'd love to hear yours in the comments down below, especially if you already own the Steam Deck. Do you still play it as much as you did when you first bought it? I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. Of course, if you've made it this far, I definitely appreciate if you smash that like button, as the kids say. Consider subscribing. If you do subscribe, ding that bell. That way you get notified every time I post a video. I post weekly gaming related content, so if you like that type of content, definitely consider subscribing. But until next video, take it easy. What's up, YouTube people? It's your boy Patty McNinja, and this is my boy Yoshi, aka Kitty Boy, and we were just talking and we agree that since you made it this far in the video, you might as well subscribe. You wouldn't want to disappoint Kitty Boy, would you?